this is a change of events, isn't it? So let's all sit down. That was me pretending to sit down and get comfortable. Because after all the chat surrounding Jeff Hardy, and as we have got here, do not forget that when a news story breaks, there's a human being behind said news story. So remember, they have feelings, emotions, and try not to jump to too many conclusions. Anyway, apparently WWE now wants that guy back. Why? Here's why. And I suppose the main answer is that Jeff Hardy is a super duper whooper star and would make 99.9% of all wrestling promotions better. But if we go right to the source, Dave Meltzer, from the most recent iteration of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, he said, "Here is an update on Jeff Hardy. John Laurinaitis called Jeff Hardy to get him back a few weeks ago, including an offer to put him in the 2022 Hall of Fame class. Hardy turned it down and asked for his drug test results because he knew he wasn't going to test positive for recreational drugs. It took Hardy and his wife 6 weeks to get the results back." Sheesh. It also went on to talk about the fact that those in WWE now realize that if Jeff Hardy did go to All Elite Wrestling, he could team up with his brother Matt Hardy, reform the Hardy Boys, and then go and have some kind of feud with the Young Bucks, which would make wrestling fans excited. And yes, you must have known that when you got rid of him, it could have been a possibility. I mean, I want that match more than I want hair. So I do suppose that once all the dust had settled and we had all of the answers, WWE did decide to try and woo Jeff back in. So now we have to go through a few things. The first is that no matter what happens here, Jeff Hardy should absolutely go into the Hall of Fame one day. It is the same for his brother Matt, because when you sit down and think about it and go through their wrestling CV, these two guys have done so much for wrestling and sports entertainment that if nothing else, if you see them and they're okay with it, you should give them a hug and just say, "Thank you so much, I appreciate it." And I do get now that the big question and the confusion comes from the fact, well, what did happen at that WWE house show which didn't lead WWE to tell Jeff Hardy they didn't want him anymore? And I'm not going to start speculating about this for reasons we've already said, but if Jeff Hardy was accused of doing drugs and he didn't do any drugs, then what the hell is going on? Forget wrestling or anything else of that ilk. This is a human being that we're talking about, and one who understands that he has a reputation. Just go and watch his appearance on Steve Austin's podcast. He opens his soul about this, which I thought was very kind of him because he didn't have to. So all of a sudden to be tarred with this brush when there was no need for no tarring, well, that doesn't sit very well with me. Like I said, we should probably leave that there because I'm not sure what going down that pathway does for any of us. And even with all of this, if Jeff Hardy does decide to go back to WWE, then good for him. He should do what is best for him. He should do what is best for his family. I mean, they'd probably drive like a massive truck full of money out to his house and just keep throwing dollar bills at him, and he deserves it because once again, that dude has been killing himself for us for years. But given that I basically spend my entire life living in a fantasy wrestling booking land, I tell you what I want. I want him to go to AEW if he is indeed happy and healthy. I want him to team up with his brother, and I want to get all these dream matches right into my face. I mean, we would get that Young Bucks program on a bigger stage after we got it a few years ago when the Hardy Boys were taking on the Bucks of Youth. But when we are done with that, forget about it. Because you can do the Hardy Boys versus FTR, you can do the Hardy Boys versus the Lucha Brothers, you can do the Hardy Boys versus the Jurassic Express, you can do the Hardy Boys versus Cody Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes, you could do the Hardy Boys against Private Party, and I'm honestly going to stop there because we could do this for days. The Varsity Blondes. And of course, eventually the novelty will wear off because that's what happens to us with our eyes. We're like, well, I've seen him in AEW all the time now. But when you do hit that note, think about what else we have. Because Jeff versus Darby Allin kind of writes itself. And to be honest, anytime I do see Darby, I've always thought to myself, he must come out the Jeff Hardy school of wrestling. And then you also have Sammy Guevara, and there's definitely a correlation there. Given that both those guys at some point in their careers have been involved in the TNT title mix as well, can you imagine if you put Hardy into that? It would be a joy. Although I do just have one request: do not introduce a ladder. We saw what Sammy did with Cody Rhodes the other day. Can you imagine a Jeff Hardy versus Sammy Guevara ladder match with the TNT Championship on the line? I'd have to watch it like this, like it was some kind of horror movie and I was popping up from over the sofa because I'm not 100% sure what they wouldn't do And I definitely know what they would. You'd also probably eventually get Jeff Hardy aligning himself with a young up-and-comer, because AEW loves doing this. Obviously, Sting has done it with his new son, and Christian Cage has done it with Jungle Boy. It's kind of difficult to figure out who Jeff would do this with, because you don't really have to do it with the Sammy Guevara, because I suppose in many ways, Chris Jericho was his, but you've got a Lee Moriarty, you've got a Dante Martin, or you could come out of major left field with this and say, well, we've done it with singles guys, let's keep Matt and Jeff together, and maybe they can be the legendary tutors for Private Party. I mean, all you've got to do is turn Matt babyface, and that already ties in, the story is right there, and I tell you, I'd watch it. So it really would create a pretty cool environment for everybody out there right now who's going, AEW needs to stop hiring WWE guys. They're not WWE guys, they are professional wrestlers, and they're allowed to go wherever the hell they choose in order to ply their trade. Like if I work in McDonald's and Burger King offers me a better job, and on my first day, I walk into a Burger King and someone's going, boo, boo, you suck, I know where you were before. No one is thinking bad of me. We're all looking at that person and going, he's a little bit strange. Maybe somebody should arrest him. Furthermore, Jeff Hardy is a flipping legend. And sure, there's been some controversies over the years, but we all have ups and downs, yeah, I know, in life. And there ain't no way that he's not going to be able to bring a ton of experience and a ton of star power to wherever the hell he ends up. As long as he's in a good headspace, of course. Like I feel bad caveating that now because it feels like we don't need to caveat it to begin with, but I know what the internet is like and I know what the comments is like. Health and happiness, as I've already said, is the most important thing. Look at it being all big on my right hand. Here's wrestling on my left. Look, it's all teeny tiny small. And as a closing remark again, hopefully we can take all of this and remember that when these rumors do get out there, we all tread carefully like we don't want to break an egg. And this doesn't mean that you can't have opinion, and it doesn't mean that you can't be critical, but just be smart and give it a second. Maybe go have a little sleep and then see what you want to do when you wake up. Because tearing somebody down when they don't deserve to be torn down, well, it's not cool. And again, there's plenty of people out there that must be torn down, but it's like Star Wars. As ever, we go back to Star Wars because what did the Force need? It needs balance. Which makes no sense, right? It makes no sense. If you've got a light side and a dark side, you want to get rid of the dark side and you want everyone to be on the light side. But honestly, never go through Star Wars and rip apart its narrative because you'll never be able to put it back together again. Now, please do let us know what you think about this whole situation and where, most importantly, do you want to see Jeff Hardy? Do you want to see him back in WWE? Do you want to see him in AEW? Maybe you want him to go to Impact and be Willow. That was kind of weird, wasn't it? Maybe you want him to go to New Japan Pro Wrestling. I want to hear your thoughts. Then like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to whatculture.com where we will keep you up to date with this story, as we shall do here on the YouTube channel. So make sure you go watch a bunch of videos, see what's going on, and we're on social media. Of course we are. Come give us a follow. This is the follow hand. My name is Simon from What Culture. Thank you for joining me as always as I slap my head and ask why. And yes, sometimes people tweet me and say, Simon, you're gonna get a concussion if you keep hitting yourself in your head. How strong do you think I am? Only in my dreams. Goodbye.